Republicans are terrified of their constituents, and it shouldn't shock us. Their constituents are furious because Republicans clearly don't care about them. In a recent move from the NRCC, we saw just how scared they were, canceling all in-person town halls after only 2 weeks of blowback. That is how afraid they are. But unfortunately for these Republicans, and fortunately for us, they're out and about in public, and they're out and about being called out in public. And we saw that happen with a recent example of Republican Rich McCormick, someone we despise on this show, running away after being called out and confronted to his face in Washington. It was humiliating for him. We are going to get into all of it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into that clip, I want to offer up a little bit of context on the issue Rich McCormick was being confronted about, broken down right here by Governor Tim Walz.
When the Premier of Ontario says that they're going to cut off electricity to us, that's a problem. Do I hear Donald Trump saying a damn thing? No. Do I hear him say anything about the wildfires down in South Carolina? No. When we have these things, he just wants to attack California or attack his political opponents. This is not leadership. The American people know it, and those folks in that room, I can see it in their eyes. They are terrified to go back and talk to their constituents. It took them 6 weeks to screw the economy up.
Governor Walz, it's Jen Psaki. You seem to have a lot on your mind, and you're fired up, as per usual. You also said today on X or Twitter, or whatever the heck we're calling it, that you may, when you talked about how the NRCC chair said that Republicans should not go out and hold town halls. And you said, hell, maybe I will. If you congressman refuses to meet, I'll come host an event in their district to help local Democrats beat them. What does that look like? Are you really going to do that? And has anyone reached out and taken you up on that?
Well, if they want me to, I tell them, if it helps you in your district to have me, I'll do it. If it helps you to act like you don't know me, do that too. I just care that we elect people who care about their constituents. And I'll tell you, Jen, I lived through the town halls of 2010, the ACA town halls, and those started out as organic. I know they got fueled, but Mike Johnson saying, oh, these are just paid folks. Those are not paid folks. I've lived through this. And I have to tell you, Donald Trump was the recipient of that Tea Party rage that started with those town halls, and it motivated people. I see Americans begging to there's not going to be a charismatic leader in our party come in and sweep in. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is we should be giving the platform for the citizens who are doing this work themselves. When I watch a senator from Kansas walk out of a room after a veteran stood up and asked why they were firing veterans, and then go back and say, well, I know these guys are from the cities driving Mercedes. I'll guarantee you that guy's not driving a Mercedes. And I think what I'm mentioning is we in the Democratic Party, we've got our leaders out there. They're our voters. They're the middle-class folks. And to be honest with you, I hope it's a lot of those millions of people who I didn't inspire enough to go vote. Those are the folks we needed. I don't believe maybe I'll change a lot of Donald Trump's folks, but they're seeing the results of this too. But what I'm saying is Democrats need to be present. We need to be in every space. We need to hear when these folks are expressing those opinions, and then we need to deliver results so it improves their life. This gentleman was just saying, I don't think this is fair that you're firing veterans for without reason. They served. What do you have to respond? And a United States senator got up and walked out. That is just outrageous. I stood there and took my beating. I still do that when I'm in the public and people holler at me. That's part of our democracy. And you don't get to just go in there and cheer Donald Trump tonight. You go listen to your constituents. So I'll go where they ask me.
This is the most anti-veteran administration in history, run by the guy who called men and women who serve our country suckers and losers, a draft dodger who has never served this country a day in his life, who actually despises public service because, as we've talked about so much, Donald Trump is a person who wants credit for things he hasn't done and hates when people who actually have served, who actually dedicate their lives to this country, are applauded for doing so because he is that broken of a person. And so he has no empathy when veterans are fired en masse, going as far as to really label veterans as DEI hires. That's how MAGA views them. It is absolutely gross, and it's what Rich McCormick was called out for. And watch him just try to run away from this confrontation.
Congressman, should DOJ be firing veterans?
I think there's going to be layoffs in every business and government, and sometimes those people will be veterans. If the job is not necessary, or if there's a requirement. Veterans have been laid off since the beginning of hirings, and that's to every administration, by the way. So, yeah, there's going to be some layoffs of veterans. That's the way every business and every government process has been, only when necessary.
It is just so embarrassing that these Republicans who pretend to be patriotic, they wave their flags around, they post about how much they care about veterans, but they're firing them en masse, slashing VA benefits, shutting down suicide hotlines for the women and men who have served our country. They care that little. And to add insult to injury, they put the least qualified Fox morning host, weekend host, whatever Pete Hegseth was filling in on and for on that disgusting outlet. They put him in charge of them. It's just sad. It's sad. It is disgraceful. And Rachel Maddow went into more of it in a clip I want to check out right here.
Do not let anyone tell you that pushback does not matter. Look at this. This was the headline Tuesday night at the Washington Post. DOJ to cancel government contracts that help veterans, records show. Quote, the 875 contracts on the chopping block help cover medical services, fund cancer programs, recruit doctors, and provide burial services to veterans, according to internal VA documents. Also, a contract to, quote, safely dispose of chemical waste. Yeah, who needs that? Look, the word waste is right there. Let's cut that. So this is the VA. This is healthcare for American military veterans. Here's Donald Trump announcing proudly as president, right? We're slashing funding for cancer care for American military veterans. Also, burial services. Literally, burial services for veterans. And hey, just toss that chemical waste out back behind the shed. It'll be fine. But put that back up there. That was the headline at the Washington Post Tuesday night. DOJ to cancel government contracts that help veterans. This was Tuesday night. But then look at this. This was less than 24 hours later. Ding! Under pressure, VA halts contract cancellations in major reversal. After one night and one day of shock and outrage at what Trump was doing, hey, turns out they decided to reverse it. Not going to do it. Don't let anybody tell you that pushback doesn't work. That said, it's not like they're leaving veterans alone. The Trump administration fired 1,000 people who work at the VA 2 weeks ago. This week, they fired 1,400 more people who work at the VA. Leo Shane, reporting at the Military Times, quote, officials said the moves did not impact any mission-critical jobs, but, quote, did not provide any specifics of the types of assignments that were eliminated. One VA official telling NBC News, quote, it's leading to paralysis and nothing is getting done. The official described absolute chaos at the agency, with even Trump political appointees afraid to misstep and incur a backlash from either the White House or the public. As bad as this already is, though, heads up that the kinds of cuts we've seen this far might be an order of magnitude smaller than the cuts that Trump has coming next. The American Prospect was first to report that the Social Security Administration is preparing to slash fully 50% of its workers. That would mean filing nearly 30,000 people who work on getting people their Social Security checks. Social Security Administration has already lost thousands of employees in the last decade. They want to cut 30,000 people now. That kind of a mass firing, called a reduction in force, is reportedly being planned all across federal agencies. But slashing jobs and programs for veterans in particular is not something the Trump administration is going to be able to do quietly with no pushback. That's obvious. Military Times says Leo Shane was on a call with lawmakers this afternoon about federal workers being fired. He posted this quote from Virginia Senator Tim Kaine, quote, I think Donald Trump in 6 weeks has already achieved the record of having fired more veterans than any president in the history of the United States. That is not a distinction, he says, quote, that is a disgrace.
We need more pushback on the mass firing of veterans. But we also need to offer up the alternative, not just what Democrats would do differently, because we know what we would do differently, not this, right? That's pretty simple. But we also have to talk about our successes, the PACT Act, the way that Joe Biden was able to expand VA benefits, the investments in our service members that Kamala Harris would have made if she was elected president. We have to be demonstrating an alternative when we talk about these issues. A critique of Donald Trump is not enough. We have talked about this so much. We have to localize these issues and then offer up an alternative. And we are able to do that. And we also just have to point out how sick and twisted these Republicans are. Rich McCormick was the OG getting booed at the town hall Republican, and there is a very good reason for that. He is awful. And I think the clearest example, besides what we just saw there, is in this clip right here.
Out of when you talk about school lunches, hey, I worked my way through high school. I don't know about you, but I worked since I was before I was even 13 years old. I was picking berries in the fields before we had child labor laws that precluded that. I was a paper boy, and when I was in high school, I worked my entire way through. You're telling me that kids who stay at home instead of going to work at Burger King, McDonald's during the summer, should stay at home and get their free lunch instead of going to work? I think we need to have a top-down review.
I think you're painting a lot of these kids with a broad brush. I would say that's not necessarily a fair assessment of all of the kids. So you would say all the kids in your district who use the free lunch, for example, or breakfast, they're all just sitting at home and not working. Okay, I just want to clarify because that seems like what you were trying to insinuate.
This gives us a chance. This gives us a chance, though, to see where is the money really being spent. Who can actually go and actually produce their own income? Who can actually go out there and do something that makes them have value and work skills for the future? I mean, how many people got their start in fast food restaurants when they were kids versus just giving a blanket rule that gives all kids lunches in high school who are capable of going out and actually getting a job and doing something that makes them have value?
Now, we started this video with Governor Tim Walz, someone who really hit a political highlight in his career with the passing of free, hot lunch and breakfast for public school kids all across Minnesota. That was like a moment that really made him famous, that really elevated him. And we conclude it with a guy who says 14, 13, 12-year-olds need to be picking up a couple of shifts so that they can eat lunch at school. Could we see, is there a bigger gap between the parties? Anyone who wants to say Republicans, Democrats, all the same, it's all the same broken system, show them that right there. Tim Walz, just feed our kids. Rich McCormick, pick up a couple of shifts if you want a bite to eat in middle school. That's all we got to say. I'll leave it there. And if you want to support this channel, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.